And when I'm honest with myself, the love I have for you is not just platonic. From when we first met over a year ago, so I would have been 16 at the time he's talking about here. Hi, I'm Leafy Greens. I was groomed as a teenager by Wayne Shung, the founder and lead organizer of Direct Action Everywhere, otherwise known as DXE. Most of the people in the scene at that time, I would say, were in their late 20s. Those were the people that we were hanging out with, including Wayne, and again, my brother and I were teenagers. And I remember Wayne telling a story of getting his head stomped on while crawling back under a fence at the Frito-Lay factory, although I have no idea if that's true, because frankly I doubt many of the stories he told me were true at this point.
Well, you know, I'm actually a cognitive scientist, and I'm quite confident that plants do not have nervous tissue.
When I think about it now, I feel like Wayne chose animal rights arbitrarily. Like, he was just looking for a cause at the time. He was looking, I think, probably for a way to find vulnerable prey for himself. And I think animal rights was perfect for that, because in the animal rights movement, from what I've seen, you have a lot of victims, like sexual assault survivors, such as myself. Here you have Wayne, you know, surrounded with a bunch of other creepy older men. At the time, it was like these dudes, Minku and Yoav, and Minku was later outed as a rapist. Wayne frequently invited us, me and my friends, Joe, Mike, Keegan, and my brother Zach, who now goes by Sasha. He would invite us over to his condo all the time. And why this much older man was hanging out with a bunch of teenagers, well, at the time I had no idea. Now I see that it's the persistent pattern of predatory behavior, but then I just thought, oh cool, like I must just be really mature for my age. He was able to live this lifestyle that seemed pretty, you know, luxurious. Like, the condo was in an amazing spot in Hyde Park, and Wayne like never worked a day. He won over their trust, and my parents had him over for dinner and, you know, just spoke super highly of him. And this is a grooming behavior, putting yourself in a position where the family will allow you to like spend alone time with their child. And I was extremely depressed, isolated, lonely, anorexic. I had survived sexual abuse from my parents as a child and was still facing their emotional abuse and neglect at the same time. In the present, our safety was never a priority with our parents. Wasn't taught anything about how to protect myself or keep myself safe because my parents didn't have boundaries with me. My mom didn't see a problem with the relationship I had with Wayne, and so I didn't either. I was used to being taken advantage of by older men. And Emily, I have the deepest love and respect for you. And when I'm honest with myself, the love I have for you is not just platonic. You're a beautiful, courageous, and compassionate person. You are uniquely earnest and honest, and above all, you have a burning passion to do good for those less fortunate than us. So if you know anything about grooming, hopefully right off the bat you'll be able to recognize that this is like the excessive flattery and adoration that a groomer or a predator typically will show their victim to win their trust. From when we first met over a year ago, so I would have been 16 at the time he's talking about here, I have not been careful about setting boundaries in our relationship, and I am deeply apologetic if that has caused you any discomfort or stress. God knows that I felt an intense connection with you many times when you've offered me a loving word or touched me with a kind hand. But the biggest hang-up is age and all the social and ethical issues associated with that. At every moment where I've had any sort of feeling for you, I've suppressed it out of guilt and shame and told myself that I should treat you like a sister, and that doing anything more was terrain that I could not psychologically travel to. But I have been traveling there, and more often than I've even admitted to myself. But if our friendship is going to grow, I needed to open these feelings to the light of day. I hope you understand. It's okay if you don't have feelings for me. I will still love and respect. And bringing that out will help me get over whatever non-platonic emotions I have for you. It's okay if you need time to think. So yeah, my world kind of came crashing down around me when he sent that. I felt like the entire relationship I'd built with him was a complete lie, that the safety I felt I'd established at his condo was a facade, and that the whole time he wanted me for the same thing that everyone else I'd confronted in my life up to that point had wanted me for, which was sex. It was incredibly degrading. I felt completely betrayed. He also sent an email to my mother that is possibly even more awkward and uncomfortable. I think I've developed a bit of a crush on your daughter. On some level, I guess that's not surprising. Emily is a beautiful, compassionate person and has been infinitely kind to me in my times of need. I considered continuing to pretend that I did not have any non-platonic feelings for Emily, but there were times that I felt it was causing harm to Emily. For example, when I've had minor freakouts about the closeness of our relationship and tried to create distance. I'm also a great believer in honesty above all else in human relations, so I told her, and I feel like I should tell you too because your well-being is linked so closely to your daughter's. My mom, who is, like I said, a piece of shit, of course, responded by not caring. She says, "Hi, I appreciate you considering my feelings. I do think the age difference is a problem, but you are very much cared about in our family, and I trust you will work it out in yourself. I'm looking forward to seeing you tomorrow night." So not only did my mom not give a shit about the fact that I was devastated and crying over this letter, she also had Wayne over for dinner the next night. Wayne concludes with, "Thanks, Pam, it is a problem, and I imagine you've been concerned about this in the past." No, of course she hadn't, you dumbass. Maybe Emily has too. Nope, had no idea. The thought of that gives me shudders and makes me feel like quite the creep. You are a creep. And you should have had the willpower to not fucking act on any of that, to not say any of that, to not hit send on those dumbass fucking medieval times emails that you sent to me and my mother. Back then, I was a vulnerable kid and Wayne betrayed me. He tried to have sex with me when I looked up to him as a father figure. After all of this, I moved away and Wayne moved away. I moved all over the place and Wayne moved to California. We stayed in touch, particularly when I decided to come forward about my parents. He was the first person I contacted, and he actually discouraged me from doing anything about the fact that I'd been abused by my parents. He told me that it was basically useless to try because the statute of limitations was up.